Shalom. I'm Rabbi Josh Caruso from Anshe Chesed Fairmount Temple, and it is my honor and privilege to be here with Mort's family and to share some words about him and to help escort him to his final resting place. A past congregant of the temple lived in an old-style village in Eastern Europe in the early 1900s. This is a true story. The Cossacks came around, as they would often do, and burned down her village. In the years following, she would tell a story to her family again and again to ingrain the lessons of a systemic anti-Semitism to anyone who listened. But there was a final note to this story. After recounting the devastation of watching her village burn, Grammy, this woman who told me the story, shared how she noticed a still standing but burned apple tree. She looked again and saw a piping hot apple on one of the tree's limbs. She reached up and she grabbed it, enjoying a bit of its sweetness, a small but miraculous gift on such a difficult day. This story has always captivated me. I think about this person as a little girl in a burned-down village, how she found a redemptive moment. She found sweetness in the bitter moments following such terrible destruction. And so, too, we today are trying to find a little sweetness to hold on to at a time of grief. We join together, and as we move through this period, we reach for those moments of sweetness. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking, a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Mort's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. I invite you to join with me now in the recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. A modern meditation. After a while, you learn the subtle difference between holding a hand and chaining a soul. And you learn that love doesn't mean leaning, and that company doesn't always mean security. And you learn that kisses aren't contracts and presents aren't promises. And you begin to accept your defeats with your head up and your eyes straight ahead, with the grace of a woman or a man, not the grief of a child. Did you learn to build all your roads on today because tomorrow's ground is too uncertain for plans, and futures have a way of falling down in mid-flight? After a while, you learn that even sunshine burns if you bask too much. So you plant your own garden, decorate your own soul, instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers. Did you learn that you really can endure? and that you really are strong, and that you really have worth. And you learn, and you learn. With every goodbye, you learn. Today, we remember Morton Smiley, a driven, devoted, enthusiastic man. He worked hard, he played hard. He was a real athlete who played tennis, golf, and even boxed in high school and college. He was such a competitor that even in his later years, he would intentionally play with younger players, younger guys, just to see if he could beat them. Mort worked just as hard at his professional life. He spent 40 years at the plumbing and heating service company. He was a fire protection and sprinkler engineer, drafting plans as a mechanical engineer. And even when the business closed when he turned 70, Mort went to a rival company and worked there until he was 85 years old. After he retired, he still played golf and tennis as he could with buddies. He even went along with a Christian group, all younger guys, to continue working on his game. It didn't quite matter what the group was. As long as he could tag along and be one of the guys, that was fine, and they took him in. He was born in Cleveland in 1922 to Morris and Molly Smiley. He graduated from East Tech High and made his way to Ohio State University to pursue engineering. His education was interrupted by World War II when he enlisted in the service from 1943 to 1946. He assisted as an engineer in building and destroying bridges in Burma and India, amongst other places. Upon his return, Mort eventually got his degree, but not before he met a lovely woman named Evelyn Demick on a train. As I shared in my eulogy for Evelyn, now it's about 12 years ago, Evelyn was that interesting girl he met on a train ride to Cleveland. Coming home to visit from their respective colleges, Mort from Ohio State, Evelyn from Ohio U, Mort was drawn to this woman on the train who was not shy to talk and who engaged him so deeply in conversation. It was then that Mort knew that this was no ordinary woman and that he would pursue a relationship and eventually marry her. Still, a Cleveland boy dating a Heights girl was not always easy to negotiate. Luckily, Mort's charming ways were enough to win over the in-laws, and he and Evelyn would soon move to their first home on Okolona in South Euclid. Indeed, Evelyn and Mort made a fine couple. They were married for more than 50 years. They loved socializing with the couples club, made up of many Fairmount Temple members. Sometimes they would go away on trips together, and sometimes they played poker. And as a result, Ted and Renee became friendly with the other couple's kids. Evelyn was a tough disciplinarian, Mort more conciliatory. They made it work. They both loved their kids. Ted, Renee, and Brian, who died far too young. They supported them wholly in their activities professionally and personally. Ted remembers going bowling with his dad downtown and getting ice cream afterwards. Renee and Ted remember their trip to Hershey's, Pennsylvania. Ted worked for his dad for 5 years and learned a lot about the business. Renee always felt loved and knew that Mort only wanted the best for her. Mort, however, did have his own special proclivities. He was headstrong, sometimes to everyone else's chagrin. For example, once Ted and Mort were set to fly out to North Carolina. I'll keep it clean, I promise. But they discovered that they were at the wrong terminal. With little time to spare, Ted made it to the gate in time, and the flight waited for Mort to arrive. However, when Mort got to the gate, he told the flight attendants that he needed to go to the bathroom right away. Never mind that there was a flight full of passengers waiting for Mort and Ted to board. But Mort did what he needed to do, took his bathroom break before boarding. Everyone waited for him. Even so, while Mort had a strong and tough outward personality, he was, as Renee and Ted shared, a marshmallow inside. He loved sitcoms like Get Smart, I Love Lucy, All in the Family. He was an avid newspaper and book reader. He enjoyed learning about U.S. history, had his opinions about politics. He had a special relationship with his friend Bob Cookman. Is that right? Cookman? His very best friend. Ben, excuse me. After Evelyn's death, and Ben had died too, things got harder for Mort. His move to Stone Gardens at first went well, and he found a lot of friends. He even had a few girlfriends. However, these last 5 to 6 months were spent in and out of the hospital. But still, he refused to accept his decline. Here's where the headstrong part came in. In his mind, he still felt strong, and even would try sparring with the nurses from time to time. Indeed, he was always proud of his athleticism. He would do rehab at Menora Park, and the therapist seemed to marvel at his strength. But Mort really couldn't see that he was edging closer and closer to the end of a very full life. 95 years. 95 years. He just couldn't believe it was really time to prepare himself to say goodbye. He always thought he would be playing just another round, one more round of golf tomorrow. Even in the most difficult moments, we must find that sweetness, a soft landing, a place to put ourselves amidst challenge. Like that apple that was picked from that burnt tree. Difficult times demand a softer landing. Perhaps for Mort, that landing has taken place on a lush, beautiful golf course. Perhaps it's taken place on a tennis court. And perhaps he is the one who's beating his opponent again. And he's much older than they are. And he's proving once again the strong man he always was. Perhaps he's bucking the odds one more time. Never, ever giving up. Zichrono livracha. May Mort's memory forever be a blessing. And let us say, Amen. I'm going to pause for a moment as we think about it. Mort's memory and the impact it made on each one of us. I invite you now to please rise, if you are able, for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El male rachamim, shochein bamromim, hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, במעלות קדושים מותרים, כזוהר רקיע מזהירים את נשמת מרדכי בן משה ממלי, שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני ונחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Morton Smiley, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, we turn to the conclusion of our service. On behalf of the family, I know they want to thank you for being here and standing with them during this time. Graveside burial will take place immediately following the service at Mayfield Cemetery. Mort is survived by his son Ted and wife Donna, by his daughter Renee, by his grandchildren Rabbi Sarah Smiley and her husband Rabbi Josh Layton, his grandson Eric, his wife Jen Haas, Eric Smiley, and his great-grandchildren Jonah Smiley and Eliana Layton.